And we are back. We are at the Democratic National Convention here in Chicago, Illinois, at the United Center. Melanie Campbell, thank you. Melanie Campbell, chair of the Power of the Action Ballot Fund, is my guest. Melanie, excuse me for stumbling on your name.
All right.
You know I know better.
Yes, that's okay. That's okay.
So one of the first questions I'm asking everybody when they sit down here is why does 2024, why is it significant to communities of color?
Well, I think the key for me is that there's the structure of what kind of country we will have, what kind of governmental structure we will have, is really what's on the ballot. And so what that means is, if you hear people say, well, the democracy is on the ballot, well, what does that really mean, right? What it means is about what kind of government structure we have. We have 3 levels of government. That's continued to be the case based on where these 2 parties that we have, right, stand on that. And right now, we have one who said he wants to be a dictator on day 1, right? Just for one day. I don't know what that looks like, right? And then you have another party that's saying we want to keep a democracy, strengthen it. What do I mean by strengthening it? We need to make sure the Voting Rights Act is reformed. So we have the John Lewis Voting Rights Act passed, Freedom to Vote Act passed, so that everybody, one person, one vote. Too many people. I'm old enough. I wasn't there, but I'm old enough to know what my parents and my grandparents. I come from Mims, Florida, where Harry and Harriet T. Moore house was bombed before I was born in the 50s. Why? Because they were registering black folks to vote. So I came out of that kind of a culture, if you will, of understanding that people did truly die from my community that I grew up in. And so understanding that we have a lot of laws that have been passed to make it harder. Georgia is one of those states that just recently, just like this week, was trying to make it even harder when it comes to who gets to count the vote. So there's a lot going on. And so that's why that's my major concern when it comes to the structure, that we have 3 levels of government in this country. The founders built it that way, and it's worked for 200 plus years. So that's where I think there's a big concern about what's at stake in that broader sense.
More specifically, why is the election important to women and women of color?
Well, as a woman of color, black woman specifically, because as a black woman, I feel we've been under attack to control our bodies. When you talked about Roe versus Wade was overturned over a year ago plus now, attack when you think about attacks on economic freedom, when you have the Fearless Fund that was funding venture capital for not just black women but women of color who but the specifics about why that's important. If you want to grow a business, which means that you can build wealth, but if you can't get in this country, before the Fearless Fund started out of Atlanta, the sisters started it, black women got 0.006% of venture capital.
Access to capital.
Access to capital. That's on the ballot, right? And so when we say freedom is on the ballot, we're not just talking about freedom to do what you do, love who you love, which is important. We're talking about freedom to be able to fund our freedom, access to build wealth for generations in this country. So it's on the ballot.
Why? Every 4 years we keep hearing about voter registration in our community. Why is that such an issue? One would think, after all that we've been through and all the progress that we've made, and now, based upon a lot of that progress, so many things that are under attack, that it would be obvious that but there seems to be this constant clarion call and this struggle to convince folks in our community that the ballot, that the franchise is important, and I could go on and on. You get the question.
And I think every generation, it is about your lived experience, right?
Right.
And when you have something, a lot of times, coming out of Florida again, I'm not beating up on my state, but it's just a fact. My mother helped put Black history in the public school system. Well, God rest her soul, died in 2016, 87 years young. She was a public school teacher. But back in the 70s when I was growing up, my mother and them helped put Black history. It used to be taught in Sunday school,
right,
in the Black church. But they got together, her and a whole lot of other folks, and got Black history put in the school system so that we would know that history. Our kids aren't being taught that. They're not even being taught civics in a lot of places.
Right.
So they don't know. We're failing our children as a country, right? And so that's part of it. It's not just apathy, like they just don't want.
Right.
They don't know.
Right.
And when you engage with young people and get them to kind of relax,
right,
and trust you a little bit,
right, right.
A lot of times they say they just don't know, especially the younger ones, and they don't want to mess up. So if I don't understand how it works or why, then I'm just not interested, right? But when they see that they have some power, and that because of the Generation Z, I hate all these alphabets,
right?
But they are what they are,
right?
The generation under 30, those young people really could change not just that young demographic. They have more numbers than any other generation, but they're not maximizing it. But I can tell you this. That energy is changing in the last few weeks.
Yes.
Because you have a generational shift taking place. I was out there really pushing for the Biden-Harris ticket to stay in place because I knew they were trying to take the vice president off the ticket.
Right.
So as a black woman, we were fighting that.
Gotcha.
But we understood if they chose, they needed to choose the person who's always the second in charge is the vice president since the beginning of this democracy. So the energy level amongst young people has increased because they see a generational shift.
Melanie Campbell, thank you so much for your time.
You.
Chair of Power of the Ballot Action Fund.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Greatly
and
appreciate it. It's been too long.
Yes, it has.
You,
and so we together.
Absolutely.
All right, and we're going to stay together.
You got it.
All right.
Got it.
Thanks a lot.
All right, folks. Politics and Color is where you are. We're here at the DNC in Chicago, Illinois. There's more. Stay with us.